Cooperativeness is helping other people meet their needs. Compromise, though, is ultimately in sort of a lose-lose situation. Hi, this is Jim Breon. Welcome to this YouTube channel where we discuss all things mental health. What I'm going to be talking about today is the idea of resolving conflicts. And, there's lots of different ways to look at resolving conflicts between people, whether it's situations between intimate partners, at work, between groups. And I'm going to look at one particular model, so to speak, for understanding ways to resolve conflict between people. Conflict is inevitable in interpersonal relationships, work, teams, groups, and the difference between the masters and the disasters, so to speak, is how we learn how to resolve conflicts. Even in intimate relationships, there are always going to be ruptures. There can be ruptures in friendships, and the way that we repair those ruptures or don't is what makes all the difference in the world. So one model I'm going to refer to today is something called the Thomas Kilmann conflict management model. It's a concept that was devised by some psychologists who look at the balance between assertiveness and cooperativeness and how we can work to either increase our assertiveness in our communication or our cooperativeness in order to resolve conflicts. And I think it's kind of an interesting way to look at it. First of all, assertiveness is basically asking to have your needs met. Some people are very assertive, others not so much. And I think people that often work on increasing their assertiveness, doing assertiveness skills training, that sort of thing, sometimes people confuse assertiveness with aggressiveness. Aggressiveness is not the same thing at all. And I wanted to talk about some misconceptions. There's actually a great deal of benefit in learning how to be assertive in a healthy way. It helps you to achieve your goals, develop self-respect and greater self-esteem, and you get your needs met. Aggressiveness is something very different. It's not just asking to have your needs met, like telling somebody, I'd really like it if you could do this or not do that. Aggressiveness is where every encounter becomes sort of like a contest, a competition, where there's a winner and a loser. And people who are aggressive, they often feel like I'm going to get my way if I'm just louder, more insistent, more threatening, or manipulative. That's not what assertiveness is at all. It's simply asking that your needs are addressed. And if we can learn to ask to have our needs met in ways that people can hear, then it ends up becoming a win-win situation. The problem with aggression is that people feel like they're taken advantage of and often are. And aggression is not effective ultimately. And aggression turns into what we think of as bullying. Aggression is demanding that somebody submit, but that's not actually going to create a favorable response in people, causes resentment and actually people to take opposite reactions. Some people are not aware of how to be assertive, and maybe because of their own conditioning, even from growing up, maybe they feel like, I always have to give, or I have to please people all the time. They might even think of themselves as not having the courage to speak up for themselves. And sometimes that type of person, when their needs are really important and they need to be met, they might actually overreact and overcompensate and shift towards aggression. Some people actually feel that they have to be angry in order to assert themselves. But this is really a mistake in thinking, and it starts to shift into things like defensiveness, can lead to argumentativeness and overreactions. So learning to be assertive in a healthy way is an important aspect of this. Now, the other element of the model is cooperativeness. Cooperativeness is helping other people meet their needs. And if you look at this as if it's a graph, assertiveness on one axis and cooperativeness on another one. So what that looks like is somebody who's very good at being assertive. They're very good at asking to have their needs met, but they're not very good at cooperativeness. In other words, they I really don't care if anybody else gets their needs met. It's really just about me. This is what looks like extreme competition. This is what looks like narcissism. This is what, a boastful politician who wants everything his way looks like. If you're very good at being cooperative, but you're not very good at asserting your needs, then you become very accommodating. You're there to help other people all the time, but people also walk on top of you. People treat you like you're a doormat, so to speak. Now, if you're very low on assertiveness and you're very low on cooperativeness, this is what starts to look like avoiding. People just avoid situations because they don't want to get into conflict or they're afraid to voice their needs. And the idea is that the best form of communication would be somebody who is high on assertiveness, but also very high on cooperativeness. So you're up in that upper quadrant. And that's what we think of as collaboration. We can be pretty good at assertiveness and pretty good at cooperativeness. And then we sort of meet in the middle. And that's what we think of as compromise. Compromise, though, is ultimately in sort of a lose-lose situation. In other words, this is what I want, but I'm going to give up half of it so that you can get what you want. And this is what I want, but I'm going to give up half of it so I can get what I want. But we end up both losing. And the best way to actually resolve conflict is through collaboration, which means that I'm going to take the time to actually understand what your needs are. And you're going to take the time to understand what my needs are. And we're going to look at ways that we can help each other, both win. The problem with collaboration is that it takes time. It takes time for two people or two sides, two parties to understand each other and what their real needs, drives, fears, concerns are. And sometimes the time commitment, doesn't allow for real collaboration. But I think it's something that we should strive for. Another aspect that happens, when somebody is really high on assertiveness, but not cooperativeness, or very high on cooperativeness, but not assertiveness, is that we can end up where one person is sort of one up and another person is one down. And when somebody is in a one up position, they can start to be contemptuous of other people. When somebody is in a one down position, they might even be contemptuous of themselves, so they don't ask for what they need. And when we see situations like that, it's really important to empower the one that's one down and to help the one that's one up to come down from grandiosity often. And often in relationships and interpersonal relationships, there can be somebody that we think of as a blatant and somebody who's a latent. In other words, the person who's grandiose or super assertive can be very blatant about what they want and what they need without considering what other people think and feel. And then the latent is somebody who's more of a minimizer, whereas the blatant is a maximizer. So it's important that both people, if you're interested in resolving conflict, can recognize each other's style, where you're coming from, where the other person's coming from, and learn how to adapt and actually work together to resolve conflicts. And, frankly, when we look at the divisive nature of, society right now, the idea of working together to solve big problems, it's sort of like, wow, what a concept, But we really do need to understand ways that we can work together to help each other get what they need, and also so that we can get what we need. And when you actually start collaborating with another person or another team, another group, another party, and you understand what their real needs are, you might understand that some of the stories you make up in your head about that person or that group might not actually be true. So this is just one model for thinking about how to resolve conflict. I think it's something that can be highly effective, especially when you're working with groups at work, to help people understand, how to work together on a shared goal. There are also other aspects of resolving conflict that are important, such as learning nonviolent communication, how to offer authentic apologies, and how to accept apologies, and how to forgive. Some people really struggle with both of those. They may struggle with the real act of forgiveness, and they decide to hold on to grudges instead. Unfortunately, it's a shame because it drives division and it ends up ruining relationships. And it doesn't have to be that way. So if the videos are helpful, I encourage you to like and subscribe, sign up for notifications so we can let you know when there's more stuff coming out, and encourage you to leave comments and start a conversation. Until the next time, take care of yourself and take care of one another. Bye-bye.